September 7th, 2025. Europe wakes up to the sound of air raid sirens, not only in Ukraine, but in Poland. Overnight, Russia launched the largest drone and missile assault since the beginning of the war. 400 Shahed drones, 50 cruise and ballistic missiles, and for the first time, 10 drones deliberately aimed at NATO territory. Their target? A Polish logistics hub near Rzeszów, the heart of Western military support flowing into Ukraine. For the first time since the Cold War, Russian weapons have crossed NATO borders. And the response, or lack of one, could determine whether this is the beginning of a wider global conflict. Don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and tell us in the comments, has Russia just crossed the line into war with NATO? And remember, by becoming a sponsor of this channel, you help Navy warfare stay alive and provide real support to Ukrainian soldiers and civilians suffering from Russian missile strikes. The attack began at 22:15 Kyiv time. Radar operators across Ukraine lit up their screens as wave after wave of Shahed 136 drones lifted off from occupied Crimea and from Russian territory near Kursk. Almost simultaneously, Caliber cruise missiles surged from the Black Sea, while Iskander ballistic missiles arced in from Belarus. For Ukraine, this was nothing new, but the sheer scale was staggering. By midnight, air defenses in Odessa, Kyiv, and Lviv were stretched to the breaking point. Patriot batteries fired non-stop. NASAMS crews shouted over radio chatter as interceptors launched into the dark sky. The night became a deadly fireworks show, explosions, tracers, and falling debris across the country. And then something different. At 0042, 10 radar tracks appeared. Not toward Kyiv, not toward Lviv, but toward the Polish border. Their heading? Rzeszów, home to NATO's most critical logistics hub. This was the base where Western weapons flowed into Ukraine. HIMARS rockets, javelins, and air defense missiles. Polish air defense crews sounded the alarm instantly. Inbound drones heading from east, multiple contacts. Within minutes, the Polish Air Force scrambled an F-16 from Was Air Base. At the same time, the Netherlands, whose pilots were stationed in Poland as part of NATO's air shield, launched 2 F-35s. The chase was on. At 0107, the Dutch fighters made visual contact. Low, slow Shahed drones buzzed just miles from the Polish border. The F-35s locked on with AM-9X missiles, launching streaks of fire across the sky. Explosions shattered the night as drones disintegrated into burning fragments. Seconds later, the Polish F-16 downed another 2 with cannon fire, the glowing wreckage falling harmlessly into fields short of Rzeszów. But 3 drones slipped through. Air defense sirens wailed across southeastern Poland. In Rzeszów itself, civilians woke to the sound of explosions as drones slammed into warehouses on the outskirts of the military hub. Fires erupted, shock waves rattled windows across the city. For the first time in decades, a NATO country had been struck directly by Russian weapons, and the silence that followed was deafening. In Washington, the White House issued a statement of concern. In Brussels, NATO leaders met behind closed doors. No Article 5 declaration, no immediate military response, just silence. And in Moscow, Vladimir Putin smiled. With China Xi Jinping standing at his side during a state visit, Putin declared, "Russia will defend its interests wherever necessary. Let this be a lesson to those who interfere." The message was unmistakable. Russia had tested NATO, and NATO had blinked. What do you think? Is this the first open step toward a global conflict? Or will NATO's silence only encourage Moscow to push further? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next escalation. By becoming a sponsor of Navy warfare, you not only support this channel, you help provide aid to Ukrainian soldiers and civilians suffering from Russian missile strikes. The morning of September 7, 2025, brought confusion, fear, and silence. Polish media reported that 3 Russian Shahed drones had struck warehouses near Rzeszów, just kilometers from the NATO logistics hub funneling weapons into Ukraine. Fires burned for hours, but the damage was not just material, it was political. For the first time, Russian drones had crossed NATO borders and detonated on alliance soil. Yet in Brussels, NATO's response was muted. Officials described the incident as serious, but carefully avoided the word that mattered most: attack. Inside NATO headquarters, debate raged. Article 5, the cornerstone of the alliance, declares that an armed attack against one member is an attack against all. But was this strike an attack? Some argued it was a misfire, a drone that strayed off course. Others claimed Moscow was deliberately testing NATO's threshold, daring the alliance to act. For frontline nations like Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, the answer was obvious. This was aggression, plain and simple. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk went live on national television. Russian drones have struck Polish soil. This is an attack on NATO, and NATO must answer. But in Washington and Berlin, the tone was different. President Donald Trump, standing before reporters, refused to commit. "We're investigating the situation. We don't want escalation. Let's be very clear, America won't be dragged into a world war over a few drones." In Berlin, Chancellor Olaf Scholz echoed the caution, warning that a military response could spiral into catastrophic escalation. The divide inside NATO was now visible. On one side, Eastern allies demanded strength. On the other, Western powers hesitated, fearing direct war with Russia. The Kremlin had found the alliance's weak point: hesitation, and Putin knew it. In Moscow, state media boasted that NATO feared Russia's strength. The attack on Rzeszów was framed not as an accident, but as a deliberate lesson. The lesson? Russia could touch NATO, and NATO would not fight back. Meanwhile, in Poland, the mood hardened. Civilians evacuated neighborhoods near Rzeszów, terrified more drones would come. Polish F-16s flew constant patrols, joined by Dutch and German fighters under NATO's air shield program. But the sense of betrayal grew. Ordinary Poles asked a bitter question: if Article 5 doesn't apply now, when will it? Ukraine, too, watched with dread. Kyiv's leadership warned that if NATO failed to respond, Russia would only escalate further. More drones, more missiles, perhaps even accidental strikes on Romania, Slovakia, or the Baltics. President Volodymyr Zelensky urged the alliance: "Do not wait until it is too late. Stop Russia now, or Russia will come for you next." And yet, the silence from Washington and Brussels continued. Behind closed doors, NATO generals whispered about red lines, escalation ladders, and nuclear risks. Out loud, leaders spoke only of investigation and monitoring. For the first time since its founding, NATO looked paralyzed. And that paralysis was exactly what Vladimir Putin wanted. Standing in Beijing next to Xi Jinping, Putin declared, "Russia will defend its security. If NATO fears a few drones, what will they do when faced with real power?" The crowd applauded. The message was clear. Russia felt untouchable. What do you think? Is NATO's silence protecting peace, or is it weakness that invites a wider war? Tell us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and hit the bell to follow every step of this unfolding crisis. By becoming a sponsor of Navy Warfare, you not only support this channel, you help us send real aid to Ukrainian soldiers and civilians suffering from Russian missile strikes. The dilemma was set. NATO was divided. Putin was emboldened. And the world was left to wonder what happens if the next drones don't just hit warehouses, but a NATO base.